In this video, I want to talk about 3 ways in which the government spruik the economy. The reason why I want to do this is because I just think people are being lied to. Aussies are getting poorer. There's a lot of data to back that up. I put out a video earlier in the year saying that we've been bought, making a lot of those points. Go back and watch it if you wish. Actually, it's been the most popular video on my channel by a long way. Basically, what I'm saying is that this has been happening for a couple of decades now. Our governments have been bought out and they use mass media to get people to think whatever they want them to think. I'm going to talk about 3 ways in which we're being lied to by governments, economically speaking, but this does not just mean economically speaking. People are beginning to wake up and question everything as they realize they're getting screwed. They're feeling the economic pain. On this channel, I've been saying since the start of 2022 that the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. I've spoken about the fourth turning and I've taken quite a negative view of how things are going to play out in our economy. The economy is just a reflection of the decisions people are making. And after all, people's decisions on money are based on value. And just to drill a little bit deeper, people's actions are based on value. We only do something if there's value in it for us. This week was a confirmation for me. It's the 13th of September, and I will just say this about the events in America. They didn't like what he had to say, so they killed him and they laughed about it. The divides are getting deeper, which means the uncertainty will continue. This means the rich will keep getting richer at the expense of everyone else. The reason I do this content is to speak the truths I see. And what I see is governments don't make decisions in the best interests of people, and therefore people need to make their own decisions in their best interests. So I'm going to talk about the ways in which the government spruik the economy, to pull back the curtain, to hopefully help people understand that they need to make better decisions to get better outcomes in their life, because the broader world is clearly going in one direction. So, okay, let's start with number 1. Without a doubt, the number 1 thing that governments use to spruik the economy is the GDP. Oh, we've got strong GDP growth. We've turned a corner. We've engineered a soft landing. We're all going good. It's just not true. It's not true because if you take population growth out of it, obviously we've had immigration as a hot topic in recent years. If you take immigration out of it, the GDP would have gone backwards. Governments love this measure because it's a reflection of how much we're spending as a nation. And if that's growing, it means our economy is growing and everyone gets to reap the benefits of a growing economy. Obviously not, because most people have gone backwards. And if you look at GDP on a measure per capita, you can see that people are actually spending less. If growing GDP is good, but it's actually going the reverse when you bring it down to the individual level, then what's happening is bad. What gets missed on this point is that this is bad, but it's on the backdrop of the costs of goods and services going the other way. It's on the backdrop of goods and services increasing. So this thing when they get out there, and I get it, governments have to spruik the economy, but it does not help the individual, and it actually allows a certain amount of Australians, I would debate, into a false sense of security. The second way in which governments spruik the economy is they talk about jobs creation. Jobs, jobs, jobs. We're all hot for jobs. The idea of low unemployment is that everyone is in the workforce, they're all earning money, which means they're all able to spend money, which helps GDP go up and everyone reap the benefits of being able to work. I think if we take a closer look at unemployment in recent years, we'll see that the public sector has paid for the vast majority of all the jobs creation. And that explains the lack of productivity in this country. It explains that we are reliant on basically one industry. I think it gets worse though. I want to paint a picture that this has been going on for a couple of decades. I remember doing a video, 2 years ago, showing the amount of spending that is being done on infrastructure that has increased, I think it was 500 or 600% from, 2016 or 2017, something like that. What's important here is most of that infrastructure spending has come from the government purse. So governments have spent money on infrastructure, which they should. I'm just making a point. They've given it to the private sector and that money has created jobs. That's keeping unemployment low. However, what's happening is that firstly, government money economy is employing people. They're now competing with the private sector for jobs. I think it's fair to say that government jobs, number one, are more secure and provide more perks. So we have this strange situation now where the private sector have to increase wages to compete with the government sector. In my opinion, it doesn't sound really healthy. And I've had people in the past come to me and say, well, Will, that's creating jobs. That's good. That's increasing income. That's good. I'm going to talk about why that's not necessarily good in the future. However, for me, it paints a picture of saying, well, public sector money never gets production. We've learnt that through communism and through socialism. And the problem with this, when I say recent, probably last 10 years, this way of governments paying for things, the problem with this is that it never turns out good. They can keep this lie going for a while, but it never actually helps society. It always turns out worse. And this brings me to my third point, and it's the third lie they tell us. They tell us that increased wages is better for all of us. That's just not true, because in the last 5 years, our wages have gone up, but the cost of everything else has gone up further. I actually think this is really obvious. It's just not said very much in the media. It's like they're blind to this. And what I want to come back to is, it's all a lie. It's all done to confuse us, because if we look at our wages going up and what that buys us, and the most important things that our wages buy are assets, then wages have gone up nowhere near as fast as what assets have gone up. You think about the stock market, or you think about the property market. Eventually what happens is the wages go up so slowly that more and more people can only afford just to live. The average first home buyer now is 37 years old, and it's a 30-year loan, so they're going to be in debt all of their working life. This is not good. What I want to do right now is break down the three main people that are affected by this. Number one, young people. So 20s and early 30s. They're coming into adult life and they're sitting there going, well, how the fuck am I supposed to afford to be able to buy a house and have a family and then retire comfortably? There is no great Australian dream. A growing amount of people cash out of the system. I mean, that's what the system is, isn't it? You work hard, you pay your taxes, and then you get those things that you want. I mean, we don't even have a safer society right now. Last weekend in Melbourne, 2 kids died because they got attacked by machetes. People at these ages checking out of the system is not a good thing. We aren't going to see the results of that for the next 10 years. These guys are screwed because they need to buy assets. They need to get into the housing market. However, house prices are so high, and we've created this. I really feel for these people because they're coming into life thinking about, oh, how am I going to solve these problems? They getting harder and harder as the months and years roll by. What I would say is, it doesn't hide the fact that you need to have a home to live in, and if you rent, then the rent's going to keep going up, because the rich are getting richer. What I want to say to those people is, you're in a tough position, but you have to do something. Governments have all sorts of first home buyer schemes that help people get into the market. I suggest that you educate yourself and try and get into the market as soon as possible. And I know a lot of people that follow me say, well, that's a bad decision because things are going to crash. There's a lot of debt. And I totally get that. And I've been saying that for years on this channel. However, it doesn't take away the fact that people need to have a home to live in. If it's owned by someone else, they're going to get screwed because they cannot buy assets. So if you want to educate yourself, look on the links below. It is quite a lot of government help available. I will say one thing about that, and that is the government help is one of the things that is pushing asset prices higher. And that is why the average first home buyer now is 37 years old. Before, let's say 15, 20 years ago, they were 28, 29 years old, something like that. The next group of people that are getting screwed by this system is probably the people my age, to be honest. Millennials, people that have a young family, they're both working really hard. They have relatively high debt compared to the generation before them for obvious reasons. Their challenge is, how do I turn this 25 or 30-year loan or whatever it is into a 20-year loan? Because otherwise we're going to be working all of our lives, not just to pay the loan off, but to provide for our kids, because they're not going to have the same opportunities that we did. Again, I've got some information below, free information on things you can do to pay your loan off a lot faster. I'm talking turning a 30-year loan into a 20 or a 15-year loan. Stuff that can really move the needle. It's free. It's information that's freely available online. I've just got links to it that I've created for people. So feel free to go into that. The other group of people that are getting affected by it, the older people that are 50, maybe early 60s, they're thinking about retirement. Their challenges are, number one, quite often they've got adult kids living at home that are kind of semi-dependent on them. This is obviously a drag. If they're semi-dependent, that means financially they're semi-dependent. Quite often these guys still have mortgages now. I think from memory, in the 2001 census, the amount of people that own their home outright between 55 and 64 years old, I want to say something like 55%. And in the 2021 census, it was something like 35%. More and more of these people holding mortgage debt, looking after their kids for longer. And what this is doing is it's creating massive uncertainty about their retirement. They have to try and figure out how to retire. This is another thing that's, in my opinion, that's creating more demand in the property market because they're buying more properties because they don't know how much they need to retire. They're actually also thinking in the back of their head, if I own a property, I can pass this down to my kids because they're not going to afford it. That is the three groups of people that are affected by this. Again, the main thing I want to say is that you should not believe anything mass media is trying to force down your throat. And that's what's been happening, in my opinion, over a period of decades. And you should put control back in your hands. If you want to contact me and see how I can help with that, then my links are below. Be aware if you're calling me about wealth creation and you haven't followed me for the last few years, I'm not going to shove as much debt as I think you can afford down your throat because I don't think that that's necessarily the right thing for everyone. What I will do is give you my honest opinion, and that is based on what I think is the best thing to do. I want to hear your thoughts about this because I've gone over a few kind of contentious issues. If you think that it is fair for people to talk about these ideas in a respectful way, whether you think someone else is right or wrong, then I'd really appreciate a subscribe. I'm going to be talking about this stuff more and more into the future. I realize the past few weeks have been product based about my business. I get that. You just need to understand I need to make money to keep paying the bills like everyone else. But if you want to know more about this sort of content, please give us a subscribe. Cheers.